Hello and welcome to What the F*** Just Happened Today, your essential guide to the daily shock and awe in national politics. I'm Joe Amditis. Let's get to it. It's Monday, September 11th, 2023. Welcome to day 965. The FDA approved updated COVID-19 vaccines that target the Omicron XBB.1.5 subvariant. The new vaccines are authorized for people aged 12 and older and are under emergency use for 6-month-olds through 11-year-olds. The CDC is expected to sign off on Tuesday on the new boosters, meaning they should be available in pharmacies, clinics, and doctors' offices by the end of this week. The FDA decides who can get a shot, and the CDC recommends who should get it. Although the latest subvariant accounts for roughly 3% of new COVID cases, the new shot does also protect against variant EG5, the most prevalent strain at the moment, which accounts for about 22% of new cases. It also protects from similar variants, according to health officials. This is the first time that the federal government is not buying up all the shots, although most Americans with private health insurance or coverage through Medicare or Medicaid should be able to get the vaccine for free. The estimated 30 million people in America who do not have health insurance should still be able to get a booster for free at community health centers or through the CDC's Bridge Access program. Meanwhile, a federal appeals court ruled that the Biden administration most likely violated the First Amendment when it urged social media companies to remove COVID-19 disinformation from their platforms. The judges, all Republican nominees, wrote that the administration had coerced the platforms to make their moderation decisions by way of intimidating messages and threats of adverse consequences when it comes to false or harmful content about COVID-19, the 2020 election, and other topics. The court found Biden administration officials had significantly encouraged the platform's decisions by commandeering their decision-making processes. Moving on, Supreme Court Justice Samuel Alito rejected calls for him to recuse himself from an upcoming tax case, despite one of the attorneys involved in the case, David Rivkin, having interviewed him for 2 articles recently published in the Wall Street Journal. Alito said there is no valid reason for my recusal in this case, adding that the argument for him to recuse was unsound. Alito claimed that Rivkin was participating in the interviews as a journalist, not an advocate. Senate Judiciary Chairman Dick Durbin and Democrats on the committee asked that Alito recuse himself from the case, saying that he used his interviews with Rivkin to air his personal grievances and now creates an appearance of impropriety. Durbin added that the court is in a crisis of its own making, and Justice Alito and the rest of the court should be doing everything in their power to regain public trust, not the opposite. Meanwhile, a federal judge denied a request by Mark Meadows to move his Georgia election interference case over to federal court, saying the evidence before the court overwhelmingly suggests that Meadows was not acting in his scope of executive branch duties during most of the overt acts alleged. Still, Meadows filed an emergency motion asking that same judge to pause the order, claiming that he could be convicted and incarcerated before his appeal can be heard. U.S. District Judge Steve Jones replied to Meadows' request by ordering Georgia prosecutors to file a brief in response by Tuesday afternoon. At least 4 other co-defendants have also tried to remove their cases and put them in federal court. The Fulton County Special Grand Jury investigating interference in Georgia's 2020 election recommended criminal indictments for 21 additional people who were not ultimately charged. Although Trump and 18 of his allies were charged in a RICO indictment last month, the grand jury also recommended charging Lindsey Graham, David Perdue, Kelly Loeffler, Michael Finn, Boris Epshteyn, Cleta Mitchell, and 15 others for crimes related to the national effort to overturn the 2020 presidential election, focused on efforts in Georgia, Arizona, Wisconsin, Michigan, Pennsylvania, and the District of Columbia. Lindsey Graham, who pressed Georgia Secretary of State Brad Raffensperger and his staff about vote counting procedures while they were in the middle of an ongoing recount, said, "I'll do the same thing in the next election if he sees the need." And finally, Donald Trump inflated his net worth by at least $3.6 billion each year from 2011 to 2021. New York Attorney General Letitia James said that for 7 years, Trump overstated his wealth from between $1.9 billion to $3.6 billion per year. The filing is part of the state's $250 million civil lawsuit against Trump, Trump Jr., Eric Trump, Trump's business, and some of the Trump Organization's top executives. Last month, the AG asked the court for partial summary judgment against Trump, claiming that a mountain of undisputed evidence backed up her allegations. The trial is set to begin on October 2nd and should wrap up by December 22nd.
That's all for now. You can find the links and sources for all of these stories on the main website. And as always, visit whatthefjusthappenedtoday.com for the latest news and headlines. Until next time, I'm Joe Amditis.